Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Naruto Had Some Help, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. The next morning Naruto awoke and found he was on the floor in Shikamaru's bedroom on a pallet and Choji was near him on the floor and he looked around and started to move his feet and Shikamaru said, "Morning Naruto," still with his eyes closed. Naruto groaned and asked, "How did you know I was up?" Shikamaru sighed and sat up and pointed to Naruto's little toe where a piece of string was tied around it that ran to Shikamaru's finger. Naruto said, "Troublesome, troublesome, troublesome, Shikamaru." Choji said, "Troublesome Naruto. You sure are troublesome this morning." Shikamaru said, "I see you understand what that words means now, huh?" Naruto said, "Yeah, instead of cussing you use that word as a substitute." Shikamaru nods and Naruto asked in a quiet voice, "What now?" Shikamaru said, "Now we get up and you put on those cloths and we go eat breakfast. Then our dad is going to take you out to the herd and teach you a little about our family and then test you somehow. Choji and I have to go meet our team." Naruto said, "Troublesome, I'm late and Kakashi sensei." Choji covered his mouth and said, "Is no longer your sensei Naruto. Our dads told us last night you were reassigned to our dads because they are going to train you to be an CIA specialist." Naruto after Choji moved his hand asked, "What's a CIA specialist?" Shikaku, who was standing in the door, said, "Capture, interrogation, and assassination specialist. Konoha hasn't had one in nearly 30 years. Naruto looked at him and said, But why me? I mean, why are you and the others doing this for me? I want the truth, please," saying the last part quietly. Both Shikamaru and Choji frowned a little as they glanced at each other and Shikaku said, "Because Naruto, with the skills you already have, that would be the best for you. I mean, you are able to paint the Hokage Mountain in broad daylight without being caught, break into two of the highest security building undetected, both of which show you are a stealth master in the making. Your stamina is low, Junin, already, because I know from my own experience chasing you a few times when you were younger under Hokage-sama orders. Then there is the fact how exactly you are able to figure out ways to get into secure places bypassing security. That shows you are very intelligent when you want to be, even with the damage done to your education. Those are skills that will help you in capturing with traps and deceptions. The intelligence part, you have a tool that you can use beyond anyone's belief in the Kijibunshin no Jutsu, where you can search a large amount of area in a short amount of time because a little no fact about them is whatever they learn when dispelled the original learns. That will help in general information gathering, and with the help of two friends who specialize in tea and interrogation, they can teach you how to get information out of enemies. Then there is the assassination part. You may not know this, but the Nara clan are also known as assassins, bequests of what we can do with our shadows, and that is just a few of the things we are known for. The oaths will help you as well in that area." Naruto frowned and looked down and asked, "Then what will people think of me?" Shikaku asked, "Does it really matter to you that much what people think of you Naruto, or what your friends think of you Naruto?" Naruto closed his eyes and said, "I have no friends, remember." Choji snorts and said, "Damn, are you dense Naruto." Naruto flinched at the cuss word and his eyes darted back and forward and Shikaku said, "It's 7 a.m. Naruto and my wife's gone to the hospital lab until 2 helping make medicines." Naruto said, "Thank God, I don't know how much longer I could keep that act up," as he looked for his shoes. Shikamaru said, "I agree Naruto, shush is very troublesome, but you're wrong about not having friends. I admit that Choji and I weren't there for you when we were in the academy much, but we both think of you as friends Naruto. You have always treated Choji nice about his weight when every other kid has picked on him at one time or another, and you and me always had fun because I thought that you were hiding how smart you were in the academy like I was, because when you came up with those pranks that were so much fun to do, they were brilliant. That's why the day you started wearing that orange jumpsuit and acted like a happy-go-lucky idiot, I thought you were trying to get people to underestimate you, so I decided to do the same thing and acted like I was sleeping through class also. I had fooled myself, or I wouldn't have only occasionally talked to you after that because I thought it was all an act, and that was the time that my dad started to teach me more of our clan techniques as well as care for our herd and Choji's as well with his family restaurants. So our after school time was gone then, or we would have hung out after school. I'm sorry you think I wasn't your friend, but I still consider you one, answered as Choji, and we want to prove it to you. Naruto looked out the window and said, I don't know what to think, guys. Choji said, then how about let's have a fresh start, the three of us. We can earn your trust and friendship and we get to know the real you. Naruto turned and looked at both of them and said after several minutes, all right. I will try since both of you have never hurt me outright before, but what about, as he stopped and bit his lip. Choji said, Shush is going to have to earn your respect on her own, Naruto, as well as your forgiveness. I am shocked and hurt by her. Almost as shocked as I was when we saw you had actually beat Sasuke that day. Naruto eyes widened and said, you saw that? Shikamaru chuckled and said, yeah, we were on the roof across the way and saw that along with Ino. We also saw when you nearly tricked Sakura into that kiss. That's what I think she went to your apartment that day in the first place for, was because she came up with some kind of stupid plan. Naruto sighed and said, all right. I don't want to talk about her or that anymore right now, guys. You said we need to get breakfast and I am still hungry, as he rubbed his stomach. Shikaku, who was standing in the door, said, that's understandable, Naruto. Your body ate most of the fat reserves it had built up during that time, so you really don't have much in the area of food energy in your body. However, you can't have ramen all the time, Naruto. You're going to have to cut it down to once a day because you need to eat a more balanced streak to get stronger, and also to make sure you don't accidentally from shock of eating, which happens occasionally when people go through what you just did. I will meet you boys at the table as Yoshino has already prepared the food, so hurry up, as he turned and left. Shikamaru got up and got some cloths out of his dresser and said, be right back, as he went to change. Choji got up and grabbed his cloths from another drawer, and Naruto raised an eyebrow, and Choji said, Shika and I hang out at each other's places so much it's just easier to keep half our cloths at the other's place for later use, as Shikamaru came back in dressed normal and Choji left. Shikamaru grabbed the cloths for Naruto his mother got him and said, these will do for right now. I think Dad and the others are planning on getting you some new cloths later today. Naruto looked away and asked, do you think I am the Kyuubi, Shikamaru? Shikamaru walked over to his dresser and got a scroll, and Naruto watched as a book popped out of the scroll, and he said, this scroll is you, Naruto, this book is Kyuubi, and he resealed it and said, you may have it in you but it's not you. Naruto smiled a small smile, and Shikamaru said, you know, I think that's the first real smile I seen from you in nearly 5 years. Naruto's smile slipped and said, Shikamaru said, don't worry about it. Here's Choji, better go get dressed or you will miss breakfast. Friends are friends, but good food is something that comes first to Choji and their family. Choji said, hey, jerk, earning a snicker from Shikamaru and a laugh from Naruto, who quickly got up, and when he came back a few minutes later he had on a pair of black pants, a fishnet stocking with a brown shirt underneath it, and his weapon holsters on each pant leg. All three boys came down the stairs and went to the dining table, and Shikaku said, though my wife's not here, still eat with manners, Naruto, so in case she shows up she won't go medieval on you. Naruto said, you know, I think if her and Kyuubi ever got in a fight in the bathroom she would win and send him packing, making everyone laugh. Shikaku said, yeah, she is like a beast sometimes. Shikamaru said, sometimes. Shikaku snickered and said, all right, most of the time, but I love her. They all three ate quickly some steamed rice and biscuits with a few small deer bacon. After they finished, Choji said, well, we got to go, Naruto, to meet our sensei. We will see you later, okay? Naruto said, all right. Both boys then left, and Naruto asked, where am I to stay at? Shikaku said, let's worry about that later, we got work to do if we want to train. Follow me, as he led Naruto outside, and then they went inside a gate and walked toward a set of woods, and Shikaku said, all right, Naruto, I don't know a lot about your actual skill levels, so I have a task you can help me with while I judge your SKS. I want you to create as many Kijbunsons as you can and have them form a straight line every 5 feet apart, and I want them to pick up 2 sticks and walk along the edge of the fence around this field, and then when they're in position I want them to march forward while hitting the sticks together until they make it back into this field. The noise should make all my family deers to come out of the woods. While that is happening, the original you and me will then move one at a time into a holding pin where I can check them. Naruto asked, how will this help judge my SKS? Shikaku said, by showing me how many you can make, how well you follow orders of a superior, how much chakra you waste in making jutsu, and also to test your stamina and how fast you learn, because before we finish this I am expecting you will be able to check the deers yourself, or at least check most of the things yourself, so are you ready? Naruto nods and Shikaku said, begin when you're ready. Naruto said, oh, sorry sir. Shikaku said, just call me sensei for now. Naruto said, yes sensei, as he put his hands together and said, Kijbunshin no jutsu, and 30 appeared. Shikaku frowned and said, I was told you could make way more than this, Naruto. Did I hear wrong? Naruto said, no, I could make more if I have to. Why? Shikaku said, do it again, but this time make as many as you can. Naruto said, okay, as he put his hands together and he gathered his chakra and said, Taju Kijbunshin no jutsu. And the clearing was instantly filled with Naruto's, making Shikaku wide-eyed, and he quickly got a rough count and thought, 400, not bad kid. And said, good, now do as I ordered. And the Kijbunshin started to grab sticks and run around the edge of the fence, but a few got into a fight and dispelled themselves or tripped, so it took about 20 minutes to do as ordered, and Naruto and Shikaku waited as they heard sticks hitting in the woods, and Naruto saw as a deer came out and soon several others and more, and he asked, hey, how come some have things on their heads and others don't? Shikaku said, those things are called antlers, Naruto, and those are men while the ones who don't are women. Naruto said, oh, I see. While this was happening, Choji asked Shikamaru, what should we do about Ino? Shikamaru said, let's act like we don't know anything, including where Naruto is. She still thinks he left, and until he recovers a little I am not letting her get near him. Choji said, I know. Did you see the pain H is in? Shikamaru said, see it, I can still feel it. Ino has successfully ked the sun. I don't know if it will ever rise again. As they continued on in silence. As time passed, Naruto said, hey damn it, one just ked one of my Kijbunshin. Shikaku said, yeah, we always have a buck or two that decide to fight instead of going with the herd. Don't worry about him for now. Naruto nods, and soon most of the deer and Naruto Kijbunshin were in the field. Naruto asked, what now sensei? Shikaku said, alright, that was real good, Naruto. Now you see that big square fence we have over there. That is the larger holding pin. What I want you to do is help separate the males from females and move the males into the holding pin. It might be easier to just move the females to that circle pin first, but this is a test for you, as I will wait until you can do this. Naruto nods and asked, what if they attack again? Shikaku said, the males most likely will if you try to separate them right now. Naruto said, then I guess I will start with the females, as he walked over and opened the gate to the circled fence, and he looked at the females and then back at the fence and then the herd, and he thought, the females are mixed into the group, and if I want to get them I might take a chance of having the males attack, and even the females might attack him, and asked, hey sensei, if the deer can't see, do they get scared or are they easy to move? Shikaku blinked and said, I don't know, why? Naruto took off his belt and also took off his fishnet and shirt, and he walked over toward the herd and saw a female close to the edge of the group, and he threw his shirt over her head and she jumped back before it hit and his shirt fell to the ground. Naruto said, damn it, I thought that would work. Shikaku thought, impressive Naruto, but that won't work because even domesticated deer are skittish to things they can see and hear. Naruto picked up his shirt and slipped it back on, and he slipped his belt back on, and he motioned for 5 Kijbunshin to come over, and he said, alright, here is what we're going to do. I want you all to tell the others I want them to start hitting the sticks and lead them all toward the square pin while I open the gates. Once we get them in that gate, it will be easier to divide the females without having the whole herd head back into the woods. The Kijbunshin said, yes. As they took off and told, and when Naruto opened the gates, the Kijbunshin circled the herd and started hitting the sticks again, and the deer started to run into the square pin. Shikaku said, well, you're half done, but what about the other half? Naruto said, I got an plan. As he said, alright guys. I want half of you to get all around the square pin and start hitting the sticks to scare them a little but not too bad. Shikaku frowned and thought, this might turn out bad. And Naruto said, now the other half I want to prepare the gate that runs between both pens, and when a female gets near the opening all of you on that side stop hitting and open the gate, but if a male starts going toward that side start hitting again. Shikaku crossed his arms and thought, impressive but wasteful, as he watched as Naruto's plan did work, and after a few close calls of getting a male in the female pin he was able to separate them. Shikaku said, well done Naruto for your first try, but it took you an hour to do so when you need to get it down to half the time, so dispel the clones and then we can prepare the next part. Naruto dispelled them and Shikaku thought, I expected that to knock him out or at least give him a headache, but he seems fine. Naruto asked, what now sensei? Shikaku said, now Naruto, what we are going to do is cull the females and check their health and see if any are in heat. Naruto asked, what's heat? Shikaku said, it's a time when the females can get pregnant. A female voice that both knew said, it's also the time when the males get overexcited, as they looked and saw Yoshino walking up. Shikaku said, you're home early dear. Yoshino said, it was an easy day so they told me to go on home. So how's he doing? Naruto said, I am doing okay mother, but I took too long on separating the deer. Yoshino saw her husband nod and she said, well anyway let's get to this. As she jumped over a fence and used a rope to lasso one of the female and pulled the deer toward a small square holding pin. Naruto watched and said, hey, how come you didn't tell me about that rope sensei? Shikaku said, you need to be more mindful of your surroundings Naruto. You got to realize Shikamaru, Yoshino and I all do this together every week and we don't use bunchins like you did. You're going to have to learn to do that as well. Naruto nods as he watched and Yoshino said, this one's clean, as she released the deer and it ran back into the woods. He watched as she got another female and pulled it into the pin and said, this one's got a small cut but nothing bad, as she opened another section of fence and the deer ran into another holding pin. She went on for about 20 females when she said, we got a winner. Naruto asked, how can you tell if a deer's in heat? Shikaku said, you will learn that later in some books I am going to loan you to read, as they watched as she pulled the deer into a separate pin away from the other deer. This went on for another 30 deer and 5 more were put in the heat pin and 2 more in the injured pin, with the rest being released. After that was done, Shikaku said, okay Naruto, now it's our turn. Remember how you did to get the females and males separate. Do it again, but only let 5 males in the gates between the square and circle pin at a time. We will then walk along both sides and look for any wounds or any signs of sickness. Okay. Naruto nodded and this time he went to the gate and Shikaku got on the back side of the fence away from him and started to hit 2 sticks and the bucks started to move, and after 5 got in, both looked at them and then released them into the circle pin. They did this for over 60 deer with only 3 going into a male sick pin. Naruto asked, what now? Yoshino said, now we do this, as she opened the heat pin and the females ran back into the circle pin. Naruto blinked and asked, what did you do that for? Yoshino said, you see Naruto, those deers are in early heat. It takes a few days for full heat to hit, and if we let it happen then the males will fight each other and either injure each other or else, since we need them all alive, what we do is when they are early in heat we release them into a pin with the males and let them mate. Naruto scrunched his nose and said, I don't like this. It feels wrong. Shikaku said, because it is wrong. What we are basically doing is having the females mated until they get pregnant. Naruto said, but why? I mean, isn't that the same thing as our? Yoshino said, in a way yes. Naruto said, it's wrong though. Shikaku said, but they want to mate Naruto with the strongest males, when the females are in heat, they're like fangirls in a way. They want to be mated by whoever they think is the strongest, so that is why the males usually fight to show their strength, but by us doing it like this then the females pick who they believe is strong at the moment. Naruto said, but if what you're saying is true then you're saying that Sakura-chan and Ino should be, as Shikaku put his hand over Naruto's mouth. Yoshino glared at her husband and said, alright Naruto, let me try to explain it a better way than my idiot husband. Let's use people since you don't understand deer that well. You said Sakura and Ino for fangirls, which I agree with. Now they both believe that Sasuke is the strongest, so they want to be with him. Now Sasuke is not actually the strongest, but they think he is because nobody has fought him and proved they're strongest, so if Sasuke wanted to he could mate with one of those girls, but if he doesn't he runs away like those few in the corner of the pin are. As they leave the females alone, the number of males who would mate with them gets smaller and smaller, so they have to guess who would be strongest next, and so on and so forth, meaning next would be maybe Kiba, and then maybe Choji or Shino, and then Shikamaru and you. The females will eventually find a male that wants them, and then they will mate until they are out of heat or until they are pregnant. Now after one of those two things happen, the females will remember who chose them until their next heat, at which time it starts all over again next month, and none of the males actually had to fight to prove who was best. Naruto said, I still don't like it, but I understand it a little better. Shikaku said, at least human females aren't like deer and have heats. Naruto said, actually they do. Yoshino said, no they don't, not like deer Naruto. Naruto said, yes they do. I read about it in a book from Gigi office once. It's called Overlater or something like that, making Shikaku back up and Yoshino open and close her mouth a few times and asked, what book was that Naruto? In a sweet voice. Naruto said, it's the one with the pink cover and the girl in a towel. Why? As he looked at her. Yoshino looked at her husband and said, you are to give him the talk while I go see the Hokage. Do I make myself clear? Shikaku nods and Yoshino leaves. After she was gone, Shikaku said, well, I think that's enough for today here Naruto. The injured will rest until their wounds heal, and in a day or two we will release all the others back in the woods. Let's go. As he lead Naruto away. At training ground 7, Kakashi arrived and Sakura said, you're late and that Barker Naruto hasn't showed up either sensei. Kakashi said, that's because Naruto is no longer a member of Team 7. Sakura said, finally, that Barker should not even be a ninja, and now it's just you and me Sasuke-kun, as she wrapped her arms around him. Sasuke grunted and asked, what happened to the Dobe, as he broke free. Chooser walked up and said, he was reassigned because his skills are better suited for a more specialized training. How's it going Kakashi? Kakashi said, fine Chooser, but what are you doing here? Chooser said, I just came by to find out if there is anything special you think we should know about Naruto. Kakashi asked, what's his specialty going to be if I may ask? Chooser said, CIA. Kakashi I got wide and said, interesting. It's been what, 30 years since the last CIA ninja we had? Chooser said, yeah, the Nadaime Hokage to be exact. So anything we should know? Kakashi closed his book and said, stealth is Anbu level already, chakra level is Kage level, but his control is Akademi. He has no true taijutsu to speak of, and I have talked to Guy, and the only one he could think of that would fit Naruto he doesn't know, and I don't know enough to teach it. Speed is high chunin if he goes all out, but most of the time he is actually mid-genin. Stamina is Junin level. Trap making is Anbu as well. His pain resistance is Junin level or better. H has also got senses as good as an Inuzaku. I wouldn't be surprised if he knows my previous post. Chooser said, about what we came up with also. Kakashi said, are you aware of his apprenticeship? Chooser said, yes, we are aware of all that. Kakashi asked, who's going to teach the other skills? The Hokage told me your trio was teaching him the art, but what about the other half? Chooser said, the dueling sadist. Kakashi chuckled and said, if they don't K each other he should make a good one. Currently there is very little I can teach him besides experience and teamwork, since most of my arsenal is either too specialized or have too high of chakra control required, and I don't have the time to get it under control myself. Chooser said, don't worry about it. We will make sure he knows the truth. Well, take care, as he turned and left. Sakura and Sasuke were looking at Kakashi, and Sakura said, you lied to him sensei. Naruto skills aren't that good. Kakashi looked at her and said, actually Sakura, if Naruto didn't hide his real skills and had just a little better chakra control, he could have been the rookie of the year the past 3 years. It's chakra control that held him back all 3 years. If his stealth skills were not Anbu level, then how did he paint the Hokage monument in broad daylight without being caught until he threw an exploding tag off the mountain to draw attention? If his speed and stamina were not as high as they are, how did he keep from being caught for 3 hours by 2 squads of Anbu, and 12 chunin? I hate to tell you this Sakura, but remember the ninja rule. Deception is a ninja best ally, and Naruto has deceived you and the rest of the academy for years. Sasuke gritted his teeth and asked, what does CIA stand for? Kakashi pulled out his book and said, capture, interrogation out of information, and assassination depending on the situation. Now let's go to the academy and meet our new teammate. Sasuke said, why does the Dobe get picked for that and not me? Kakashi said, because you are not suited for that. You are a shul type ninja and Sakura is a medical or genjutsu specialist type. Now let's go. Both Genin deflated at this and followed Kakashi. Earlier at Team 10 training ground, Ino walked onto the field slowly with her face down and Asuma looked at her as Shikamaru slept under a tree and Choji ate. Asuma said, you're late Ino. Ino looked up and had a bruise on her cheek and red tired looking eyes and said, sorry sensei. Asuma got up and walked to her and asked, what happened? Ino said, a wake-up call. I did something that hurt someone I know really bad. Asuma said, I see. Is this about Naruto? At Naruto name Ino flinched and Shikamaru sat up and asked, what about Naruto? Asuma looked at the boys and said, I thought your dads would have told you about it. Ino looked down and Shikamaru asked, about what? We had an old friend staying at my place last night and when dad and them got back they didn't want to talk about their mission. Was it something to do with Naruto? Ino said, it's my fault. I did something to him that hurt him really bad and, as she burst into tears again. Asuma sighed and said, it's okay Ino, did Naruto hit you? And Ino shook her head no and Choji asked, what did you do Ino? Asuma said, drop it boys and if you want to know ask your parents. Ino said in a crying voice, it doesn't matter anyways. H is gone now. He left the village, making Asuma eyes widen and he asked, what do you mean Ino? Ino hiccupped and said, he left last night. He said he was going to see the Hokage and resign as a ninja and leave the village and it's all my fault, as she started crying again. Choji asked, it might help if you talk about it. Asuma said, drop it boys and Ino, why don't you go on home while I go see the Hokage? Practice is cancelled for today, as he left in a swirl of leaves. Ino started to walk away and Choji said, hey Ino, are you planning to come by my house today? Ino said, no why? Choji said, good, I didn't want to go hide my valuables. Sire. As he turned and Ino's eyes got wide realizing he knew as she took off running away crying. Shikamaru said, that was cold Choji. Choji said, she deserves it though. At least for now. I want her to know she can't sweep this under the rug and act like it never happened. Shikamaru sighs and nods as they begin to walk away. In the Hokage office Yoshino had just walked in when Asuma shushined in and asked, did Naruto really leave? Yoshino said, no, why? Making Asuma look at her. Asuma blinked and said, but Ino said he left last night. Yoshino said, he would have had Choji and Shikamaru not K him and brought him to our place. In fact I just left him and my husband to come see the Hokage. Asuma sighed and said, then why did they not mention it before and leave Ino? I see. As he realized why they did it. Yoshino said, they must be trying to protect him from her for now. Asuma said, sorry to interrupt bye. The third chuckled and said, if only all my meetings could be handled as such. So what can I do for you Mrs. Nara? Yoshino smiled a sweet smile and asked in a sickening sweet voice, what were you thinking letting Naruto read that book? As she pointed to his itchy paradise book hidden under a stack of paperwork. The third paled and mounts and Yoshino blew again as she gave him a verbal tongue lashing that lasted an hour. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.